Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we will discuss a couple symptoms or abnormal behaviors in sugar gliders and whether they should be concerning you or not. Some of you guys follow my vlogs and they're not that entertaining, but thank you nevertheless. And may know that I have recently lost one of my gliders to cancer, Dobby. He was almost 14 years old, and while he was ill, I have studied their abnormal behaviors a lot, and I have found out a couple of the things that might be relevant to you as well when their behavior is abnormal or not. Dobby just had a little symptom. He just overgroomed his cheek just a little bit and was acting kind of mellow that day when I took him to the vet the first time, or the first time when I knew that he was ill. And it was really, most of the people would have said, oh, it's just a little bit of over grooming, he might be stressed, it might be his environment, his old age, whatever you want to think. But I took him to the vet nevertheless, and many tests later, we found out he had cancer. So even if it's just a little thing, even if it's something that you would normally even ignore, if it's concerning, take your glider to a vet. And you will hear this sentence a couple of times during this video because it is so important that you take your gliders to the vet when something is off. So here are a couple of behavioral indicators that your sugar glider might be ill, or maybe the behavior seems off but it's not really, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit as well. The first thing that many people notice when their gliders are ill or sad is that they stop playing. If your glider has a lot of toys in his cage or in her cage, but they don't play with them, then that's the first sign that something might be off. Usually gliders are super inquisitive, they love to play, they love to jump around and make lots of noises, and they love noisy toys. And if you're noticing that your glider is a bit mellow or more mellow than he or she usually is, that is a very big indicator that something is wrong. Gliders aren't just sleepy all the time. It is not normal for them, and if your sugar glider sleeps a lot or is even during his awake hours constantly sleeping or barely moving, that is a very big sign that something is off with your glider. I've noticed in the warmer months that my gliders tend to sleep a bit more. It's also because it's so light outside all the time, and also because it is very warm, and somehow that makes them be less active, or at least mine are like that. But still, if you're noticing that your glider is unusually tired or inactive, please take them to a vet and see what's going on. Another reason why your sugar glider might be a bit more tired than usual is if they have recently lost a cage mate, especially if they are on their own now. Lone gliders never do well, or almost never do well. And if they are alone and have been alone for a short while or a longer period of time, they will probably eventually get depressed. Depressed gliders don't like to play, they don't like to eat, they bark very often, and yeah, if that's the case, then you should really consider purchasing a second sugar glider, because keeping just one is not okay. Also, don't forget that if the room is light for a really long time, they will probably stay inside of their pouch for most of the time. Usually gliders only come out when it gets dark, so turn off the lights in the evening, give them a chance to play, and see if that corrects their behavior. If your sugar glider is not drinking or eating, that is a very obvious sign that something is wrong. They can easily become dehydrated if they don't drink enough water, and they will starve if they don't eat. That's also a thing that happens when they suffer from depression, but it also is possible that they are ill. If your sugar glider is shivering and it's not the usual "you are touching me and I'm scared of you" shiver, then it might be that your sugar glider is sick or cold. There might be a draft inside of your room, or the temperature may be too low. Most of you should know by now, if you own gliders, that the room temperature has to be kept at a relatively high temperature. And if the temperature gets too low, they will get cold and will probably attempt hibernation. That is not something you want them to try out, because it very often ends deadly for them. Gliders usually hiss a lot, especially when they poop, and that's a normal behavior. But if you're noticing that your sugar glider is hissing while he or she is peeing, that's a very obvious sign for a urinary tract infection, and you will have to take them to a vet and get treatment for it. By the way, keeping a relatively good cage hygiene, cleaning their bars, cleaning their wheel, cleaning their glider kitchen, and changing their water daily is really going to help to keep them healthy, and the chance of them getting an UTI will be very low. Barking is something sugar gliders like to do very often as well. If you hear them bark, they're either playing around or bored. They want to see you because you probably taught them that if they bark, you get up, you take a look at them and give them some snacks. So they will do that more often, but that is pretty much normal behavior. Unless your sugar glider is alone, then that's just a very obvious sign that he is really depressed and lonely and should be getting a cage mate soon. Sugar gliders might self-harm if they are sad or ill. So if you're noticing some patches of missing fur, then that's a very obvious sign that something is very wrong. It might be depression. If they are alone, they might start pulling their hairs out. It might be something else as well. As some of you know, my little Dobster just had a little bald patch on his face, and it was tiny, and he wasn't alone or depressed. He was ill. So if that bald patch is concerning you, do take them to a vet, because it's not always depression or self-mutilation because of sadness. It might also be that they're hurting, especially if it's in the cheek area. Then very often it might be a tooth abscess, and when something is hurting, they just scratch it all the time, and that's how they remove all of their fur. So keep in mind that most of the time self-harming comes from depression, but not always. It's actually pretty easy to distinguish if they are self-harming because they are alone or because they are sick. If they are alone, they will have bald patches on multiple areas on their tail very often, or on their belly, their wings, their face even. But if it's something, an illness, then usually that bald spot, wherever it is, will stay in one place, because that's the place that hurts, and that's the place where they always scratch because it hurts, and where they lose all their hair. So if it's just one bald spot, it might be very possible that your glider is indeed ill. You might see some cute videos on YouTube of hamsters or sugar gliders or even other animals that are running in circles. That's never a good sign, really, because that probably means that they are bored. Maybe they don't have enough toys, maybe they're alone. So if you're noticing that behavior often, that they're running in circles wherever inside of the cage, they are most probably bored or stressed out. And this usually also happens to lone gliders, so again, they need a partner. When your sugar glider is dragging his or her hind legs while walking or trying to walk, that is a very, very big sign that something is very off, most probably with their diet, because this is the first sign of hind leg paralysis, which happens when you don't feed them enough calcium with their diet, or when they get too much phosphorus with their diet. Something like corn or pomegranate seeds, or I don't know, stuff like this that just has way too much phosphorus and not enough calcium. You should always make sure to feed them a balanced meal, buy them the supplements they need with their staple diet. Pick a good staple diet. Please do it. Don't just feed them any instant stuff that you find in pet stores. That is not enough. They need fresh fruit, they need fresh vegetables, protein, vitamins, supplements. They need all of this to stay healthy for a long time. So please, even if your breeder is trying to tell you, oh, this diet I'm feeding is really good, make sure you do your own research on diets when you purchase your gliders, because a few breeders out there have no idea what to feed the sugar gliders. I've heard too many stories about this. The breeder said this was okay, and the breeder said that was okay. No, it's not always okay what the breeder says. There's a web page, it's called Suggie Info. I will link it down below. That's the page that helped me a lot with my sugar gliders. You find a lot of helpful information over there. Do your own research, read about their behavior, their diet, their housing, the safe wheels, everything. Don't just trust anyone. So if you are noticing that your sugar glider is dragging his or her hind legs, then please take them to a vet, because it is very often the first sign of hind leg paralysis, and it can be stopped if caught in time, but it will not be reversed if you leave them like that for a long time or a longer period of time. The moment you're noticing this, that's when you have to take them to a vet. They will probably get calcium shots and hopefully feel better soon. But of course, in order to avoid it, pick a good staple diet, feed them their staple diet along with their vitamins and with the calcium. Make sure you feed a lot of fruits and vegetables that are high in calcium and low in phosphorus, and then you will hopefully avoid the situation. Runny poop or diarrhea is not something you want to see inside of your cage, because first of all, it doesn't look nice, but it's really scary. They are tiny creatures. If they get diarrhea, they can get dehydrated really fast and get really ill. Sometimes it happens when you feed a lot of stuff that are very acidic, something like oranges, or even when you're feeding watermelon. Most of the sugar gliders love watermelon, and well, it tastes amazing, so who wouldn't? But if they eat a lot of watermelon, they will get runny poop, and it's probably going to look red. So that can happen if you feed too much of the bad stuff. So always make sure you portion out the snacks you give them. Make sure that they don't eat a lot of the stuff that might cause diarrhea. But if the diarrhea persists after a couple hours, then I really recommend you take them to a vet, because they will probably need some fluids, since it is very dehydrating for them if they have runny poop all the time. And just don't wait it out. If you're noticing that it happens more than 2 or 3 times, just do yourself a favor. Take them to a vet before it's too late. Now, the shape of their face might differ from glider to glider, and some of them might have bulgier eyes. But if you're noticing a swelling on their face somewhere around their nose, it might be that they have a tooth abscess. And that happens very often in gliders, especially ones that are being fed a diet high in sugar or honey. So if you're noticing that your glider has some abnormal growth on his cheek somewhere, please take them to a vet immediately. If you catch your glider eating its own poop, then that is a very obvious sign that something is lacking in their diet. Both of my males were neutered. I never planned to breed my gliders, and so I didn't encounter this problem personally. If you're trying to breed and you're noticing that your sugar gliders are killing their joeys or rejecting them, then that's a very obvious sign that something is wrong. It might be that they're stressed out, it might be that the joeys are ill or abnormal, and it also might be that the diet is lacking in protein, because lactating females need a lot of protein, and if they don't have enough of it, eventually they will possibly kill the joeys. Then of course you have some common behaviors that are really strange but not really uncommon in sugar gliders. So if your sugar glider is, for example, doing something in a repetitive manner, so if they like to, I don't even know how to explain this, but if they have their little ritual, for example, that they run from one corner to the cage to the other, and then they jump down, and then they climb up, and then they start over, or something like that, that's pretty normal. They really love rituals. Just if they're moving in circles all the time, that's the sign that something is off. Crabbing is very common as well, even though most of us might not like it. Maybe the sugar gliders are scared of you still, or not bonded. So if that's happening, you don't have to be worried. You just have to be persistent and do some more bonding time. Be patient with them, give them a lot of treats, and hope for the best. So I don't know how often you follow them during the night, but some of you might not know that sugar gliders do like to go to sleep during the night as well. So even during their awake time, they still like to take naps in between. And then of course there is this change in behavior. I have heard this multiple times from people with older gliders, and I've had this with Dobby as well. Somehow after they reach a certain age, they're more likely to wake up during the day. Maybe it happens in younger gliders as well. I don't know, mine don't do that, the younger ones. They're all sleeping like they should. But Dobby, while he was still alive, really loved to wake up constantly during the day. So you shouldn't be too worried if this change in behavior happens and if they are more awake during the day. But of course, you should not try to make them do it, and only if they do it because they want to, it's okay. And it's really unhealthy if you try to change this behavior and make them wake up during certain hours, so please don't. Now, this is one question that I've seen very often in the glider community, and I have to talk about it because a lot of people don't know about it, but male sugar gliders like to floss. That's what we call it, floss. And that's when they pleasure themselves. And sometimes their two penises, or actually it's just one, but it's bifurcated, so it's split in two, will remain outside. Just stays out for a couple hours, that is okay. But if it stays out for more than a couple hours, you should try to put, for example, some Vaseline on it so that it maybe slides back inside more easily. And if it stays out for a longer period of time, please take them to a vet. That is what happened to Dobby many years ago, before he even came into my life. He had this problem. His penis was outside for a longer period of time and it started to die off. So when his owner took him to the vet, it was already too late, and half of his penis, or one of the bifurcations, had to be amputated because of it. So you might want to try and avoid this, and if you're noticing that it stays out for more than a couple hours, try putting some Vaseline on it or take them to a vet immediately. If you have a pair, even if it's two boys or two girls, and it really doesn't matter because gliders don't work that way, they're not really discriminating sexual behavior. So if you're noticing that one glider is mounting the other and maybe biting the neck, especially if you have a female and a male, and if the male is climbing on the female's back and biting her neck, that's very often a mounting behavior, but it also occurs in female pairings or even in male pairings. And I have to say, before I got the boys, my girls did that. So yeah, I've seen it. It should only be concerning if you're noticing that they're starting to fight and the fights are really bad. Some crabbing might be normal if one of the gliders is not really up for it, but if it gets really loud and it happens all the time, then you should start considering maybe separating them for a day or two. Now, I know very often we like to say that sugar gliders are not rodents, and we hate it when people compare them with rodents. But this behavior they do have in common. Sugar gliders really love to chew on stuff, on plastic toys and whatever they can get their teeth on. So don't be alarmed if this happens. It's actually quite normal. One last thing to mention is that sometimes sugar gliders do vomit, and most often it's not good. If they do it, maybe they ate something bad, or maybe something else is happening with them. So if you're noticing that they're vomiting, you should take them to a vet. I'm hoping that you watched this video until the end, and I'm really hoping that you are watching it right now, because please let me ask you this. Do not post in the comments, my glider has this and this and that. Please help me, what should I do? If you are concerned that your glider is ill, take them to a vet. If your glider is crabbing or something else that is not health related, you can always ask, but don't ask for medical advice. First of all, it is not legal to give medical advice if you are not a doctor. And second of all, why would you trust a stranger on the internet with the health of your sugar glider? If you are concerned that something is wrong with them, take them to a vet, please. So that's about it for today's video. I hope you found it helpful. Please give it a thumbs up if you did, and subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos like this one. I also have a vlogging channel, but I am warning you, it's not really that interesting. But if you still want to watch the videos, I will add a link in the description box below. It's Awesome Suggie Mom Vlogs. We also have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat, and I will add all of those links and names in the description box below. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!